Carrie told me this morning I had to be. I'm as sure as I can be.
The voice of confidence.
I'm sure. Okay, so we are going to assume that we're back on, and so I'll take us back out of our recess. And Mr. Gannon, if you would like to continue with the economic.
Consultation, analyzing results, developing priorities, targets, and action plans, preparation of economic development plan, the estimate which is a business retention expansion, a value of $11,990 addition to the $36,400. My recommendation as previous is that it would be prudent if council desires to move forward with the businesses really suffered through those trying times, and providing an opportunity to have retention expansion initiatives and providing tools to our businesses within the county is a very important part of the strategy to ensure strategic alignment and to allow successful growth and stability with our economic envelope. The financial and staffing implications is that the current economic development officer position remains vacant despite several attempts to recruit for the position. The current position funding envelope is approximately $120,000. And that's not just the wage, that's benefits, that's everything all inclusive of that position. And we have used some of the funding in order to move the economic development portfolio forward, but it's only in a range of approximately $10,000. We've used current staffing contingencies to try to help, and I've been very fortunate to have a team that is willing to put in the extra efforts of their current positions to move this envelope forward, provide administrative support, and to make these this portfolio continually to move forward. So at this time, I'm here to answer any questions that council may have, and I look forward to the decision. Thank you.
So I guess the first question I would have, or clarification then, is you're proposing that we develop this plan for $36,423.86. And you're suggesting that we add an additional $11,990 to get the triage B&E or whatever it's called?
Correct. The $36,400 is done by a consultant that is very seasoned at providing these type of services. However, the specialty item with the
we'd be at about 48,000.
Correct.
400 and change.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Any other questions? Councillor Christie.
It looks good to me, but the only thing that worries me is timeline. When do we get results?
That's a great question. Thank you very much through the chair. As we're trying to align with the MDP, we're expecting both documents to be completed in unison because we need to ensure alignment. But at least those conversations can be had with those two parties and it's non-reactive and they both can understand each other's needs very clear.
Councillor Cunningham.
So economic development is a passion of mine, and so just reviewing what we currently have in Kneehill County, I looked in January 2021, we had an investment readiness review completed. November 2020, we have a competitive land analysis prepared by McSweeney. We also have an economic base analysis and sector report by MDP Insight, December 21st, 2020. And in February 2022, we had Scholey Research and Consulting do a sector profile project. So my question would be, out of those documents, what are we going to gain with this new proposal?
Thank you, through the chair. That's a great question. All that information, when we pulled that portfolio together to understand that information, it's kind of like pieces to a puzzle. They're all have great strategies and great meaning. Pulling them all together to one consistent approach within one document is very important to understand they're aligned with one another. There have been some changes within the portfolio as far as trying to understand the current market and the current condition out there, which will bring it together with the council strategic plan. So those documents are going to play a part into this. And from my experience is that the economic development plan is usually quite significantly more expensive, but because that work was done in the background, they're able to use that information to help move forward, but still have engagement to ensure that those strategies and those documents are still accurate and effective.
Councillor Cunningham, go ahead.
So as a rural business owner myself, I know when we had the Scholey Research one come, I know there was some inaccuracies in her presentation, I should say, that we noted because she was from Saskatchewan. And as a business owner, I do find it difficult sometimes when we have outside sources come in from other provinces. I know the town of Three Hills did one a few years ago that came from Ontario. And it's really hard when people come from outside to tell us how to operate our businesses. Sometimes they don't understand the challenges we have here. So I'm just not seeing what we're missing and what we're gonna gain from this for close to $50,000. I do know we've got Councillor Christie that sits on Community Futures, and I do know they were doing something not similar to this, but they were gonna do the community consultation to real business.
But they're working on more of a labor study at this point. My concern is the RRF funds and stuff that are gonna expire in 2024, I think. So if small business doesn't qualify, they're gonna get another $20,000 that they have to pay back that was forgiven if they don't pay that back. So we have two streams of funding there that small business took advantage of through COVID. If they don't pay that back, I believe by the end of 2024, they have to pay the whole fund back. Of the original loans were $60,000 and they were gonna be forgiven for 20. That 20 comes back on their books. So Community Futures is looking at some way of funding that loan over time to try and bridge that. But economic development for small business is extremely important. And that's one of my concerns with the timeline, is they're gonna need some solutions by the end of 2024.
Thank you, through the chair. We want to make sure we bring a quality product forward. And, you know, I do respect those unfortunate timelines that are in place. We can bring a potential draft or an understanding, but we wouldn't have clear alignment with the NDP, which is of concern, because they all align with the strategic plan as well. However, you know, understanding that is a concern, it could be put as a side note to expedite any potential, let's say, solution or initiative or thought of how we may support those businesses that are affected with that. And that could be underlying project on the side that would marry in long-term later on through the development plan. So in my opinion, the strategic direction would be to align all three documents effectively. But if there is a priority that is seen that needs to move ahead, we should caretake that, put it off to the side, and start working on that and potentially marry that back in to the document once it's finalized and to go for approval to council.
Well, and I think Community Futures is working very hard on that and have got permission now to where they have the ability to loan money to that fund, which they didn't have before. So they've finally given them clearance that, yeah, you can refinance that if you, because it was financed before, Community Futures weren't eligible to refinance it. But they've given them, okay, we got to do something here. There's two things that changed there. One of the things that Community Futures were supposed to send the money out and not have anything to do with the program. Now they're administrating the program. Yes. I mean, it came back from the back door, basically. So that's where they're at. And I think there'll be a solution through that, but it's still, small business is going to struggle here for a while.
Councillor McGhee, you had a comment or question?
I do. I think looking at the pros and cons of investing this money is important. I'm a doer, and I think a lot of our residents want to know, what are we doing? So I see the value in this, in having a road plan. I also see the fact that we already had these funds allocated for something that we weren't able to conceptualize and utilize, and so there's some good reasons for it. But could you please just highlight to us, what are we doing currently that helps with economic development here, and emphasize why then this document would make that be more successful?
Thank you very much, through the chair. The economic development portfolio is a vast portfolio, as council is aware. We work with a lot of community stakeholders, including, but not limited to, Community Futures, our different partners, our community partners. We provide different programs that are in place. Some of them have direct measurables and others that don't. The Growing Kneehill event is a quasi type of event that supports ag, but also is being developed to support and promote our businesses locally. The alignment and the work that we're doing with the MDP will allow for better sustainability within our economic development portfolio, which is a very important piece. And we're putting those strategic pillars and placeholders in place to ensure that when we're moving forward, everything is aligned within that envelope. There's been a lot of work in the background to evaluate the information within the portfolio to ensure the accuracy, which has been mentioned. And unfortunately, with the position not being staffed, our resources are taking a stress to being able to move more effectively and quicker through that portfolio. However, through the report that we did receive from our consultant, we did see some gaps within the information and a requirement for alignment of all of this great work that's been done in the past. And as I said, the economic development plan is usually something that gets redone or revisited after a certain period of time, because that economic portfolio does change. You need to revisit the successes, understand the failures within that portfolio, and readjust and realign. So what this portfolio, or what this economic development plan will do, is we'll pull all those stakeholders, those understandings, back to council for consideration as a greater plan and alignment to ensure that we're hitting the strategies, and that any understanding that council may have where there may be holes or gaps can be addressed. This document is made to allow council to participate, to ensure that it aligns with their vision, and that all these individual efforts are going to be effective for how they understand the community and the direction through their strategic plan. I hope I answered that question for you.
Yes, so what I hear you saying is that I will use my own example, we have had a vacancy under CAPE, which we also are partnering and will influence this outcome. And without proper document, we have gone off the rails at keeping time with some of our projects because they weren't appropriately mapped out. So that when there's succession and when there's change, that doesn't get lost. And you're saying this will give us the security of being able to be more proactive and more forward-moving in the future, regardless of how our staffing capacity goes or other issues that may come into our community.
Through the chair, correct. The economic development plan, like I said, provides us with an accurate roadmap. So when we bring projects forward, we already know we're fairly aligned with council's requirements. And then the final approval really justifies that alignment. So, you know, we will make efforts in the back, and we're hoping that those efforts aren't wasted. And then having better alignment ensures that we are maximizing our resources to provide effective suggestions to council to pave the road through economic development plan the way that they see it moving forward through your vision.
Councillor Phobes.
Just for clarity, is the economic development contractor being paid out of the $120,000 position?
Correct. Yes, they are.
So then you have that position on top of the almost 48,000 that we're going to dish out. If you were to hire that position out tomorrow, say, miraculously something came forward, is there enough money to offset for the rest of the year? Or are we going to be dipping into a reserve somewhere?
Thank you for the question. At this point, we're halfway through the year. I see that if that position is filled, that we have sufficient capacity within the position's envelope to fill it if required.
Mr. Hogan.
Just to maybe build on that and to go back through, but during the last strategic plan, so not our most current one, what came out of there was identified a need that the county had to be more intentional about its economic development programs and strategies. Because up until that point, it was really side of the desk type of activities. We came to council as admin and said, if we want to forward that strategic plan, we're recommending that we actually create a dedicated economic development resource in order to tick some of those things off, because they weren't going to happen just being done off the side of people's desks. The other thing that was happening with that is that without that dedicated resource or doing that side, we weren't ready for a lot of stuff. And I say we as the county. So when the province comes across and says, hey, we've got a fish on the line and they need A, B, C, and D, we would take a look at that, and we didn't know if we had A, B, C, and D. So that investment readiness wasn't there. And so we'd say, well, we might have that, we might not, we don't know. So by building that dedicated resource and bringing them on, part of that plan or that goal was for them to start building that investment readiness, start building those things. And that's where some of those projects, the ones that Councillor Cunningham brought up in the past, started to come about. What does the labor look like? What does our investment readiness look like? We weren't investor ready yet. We have some of those other questions outstanding still that Mr. Gannon mentioned in the MDP. Is in the past, the county's rule has been, well, you know, oil was good and oil and gas was good and we've got gas, so this stuff just came, right? Those days are past. And so that being said, there's still a number of things that we have to put in place if we want to go out and attract some of that diversification and achieve those things in the strategic plan. Your current one, that a lot of it has flowed from the old one into this one. That's still a priority area. So what we're looking at here, and one of the goals when we created that position originally, is that they would eventually get a read on the landscape and then build the plan so that we knew what we were coming back with. So when we said, okay, over the next 3 years, here's what the budget for that area looks like. Here's what this looks like. Here are the discussions we need to have, because none of that existed. And so it was having that person in the position, that staff member, they would be doing that. if we had an internal staff person, if this position was filled, this wouldn't be back in front of you. They would just be doing this work that's outlined here. And so what we're really doing is saying that the work that we don't have the staff person to do, we'd like the contractor to do, and we don't require additional funding from the budget to do that because we have a vacant position. We'll use that funding, so we don't need additional funding to do that. If that position was filled, this list is, the plan and the action plans and the programs are running, they would just be doing.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments or questions? Councillor McGhee.
I wanted to address the BR&E part of it. For me, I'm passionate that that should be our first priority. What we are doing to care for the businesses here locally and what retention and capitalizing and leveraging those things, I think need to be the priority. And so I strongly think that that needs to be part of what we're doing. I have a lot of passion for that. And I believe that's where it would best serve our residents, because we need our sustainability to happen. And with what we have first is where you should be starting, in my opinion. And I think that would give a lot of security to a lot of our residents when they see this money going, that that's what it's for, is for them to stay.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Christie.
I believe that having this in sync with our development planning will help attract an economic development officer down the road and be more specific to what we need. So I think the total plan is really, really important to me.
Thank you for that. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Cunningham.
So I appreciate the comments about we need an accurate roadmap, but I guess my further question is who's going to be driving the car? Because I think it's great to have this, but I do look at the 4 current ones we have on the books. And in the year and a half I've been here, I just don't see there's been a lot happen with those reports. And so I guess I'm a little hesitant to spend upwards of $50,000 on that. I think it's a bigger question too. I think we can have a lot of plans in place as a business owner until some of these provincial things are changed, such as utility costs. For example, I know a local business is paying $2,800 a month in utility costs. I don't think this is a very business-friendly climate in Alberta right now, so I think there's a bit bigger question to that, so which I know we can't change today. And I just, going back to the money, my late father would be laughing at me because just because the money's in our genes, I don't think we have to spend it, and I just, I guess I'm a little concerned about spending it just for the sake of spending it.
Councillor McGhee.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm understanding the way you propose this, that the money being spent is because we haven't had someone in staff doing this, we are going to spend it this way to get it done. So it was already something on the dock to do. This is laying it out more clearly, but it's to keep with what we suggested we wanted to do at the beginning of our budget. Is that not correct? Could I get administration to help me with that?
Through the chair, you are correct, and I do apologize. I was looking at the costing and the report. It looks like there is a error to my understanding of the report, is that the actual cost includes the BRE, the original cost. It's not plus. So I do apologize for that misunderstanding. But you are correct. There has not been an alignment with all those pieces together to be able to push the portfolio forward. There's been kind of a lot of efforts and reactionary efforts rather than a strategic, let's say, push forward with understanding where council's vision wants to go. As things show up on the desk, the team has been very reactionary, and this plan, we are hoping will provide us with a more proactive approach to provide support to our economic portfolio.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Penner.
Over the years, economic development has been identified as a major with our councils, in the previous councils too, and it's very unfortunate that we haven't been able to fill that position We didn't have that position filled when we got in a few years back, and we filled it, and we saw the benefits of having an economic development officer. And like I said, unfortunately, we haven't been able to find somebody. I think this is the next best step to that, but I do want to see results, and I do hear Councillor Cunningham's comments there on the local contractor, or as close as that understands our area and what we're dealing with. So thank you for that. But to me, this is being we do not have an economic development officer. I look forward to seeing the 6 stages developed and brought back to us, and I'm all for this.
Thank you for that, Councillor Forbes.
Do we have a timeline on this? Because I find sometimes if you don't have a timeline, then it seems to go to the wayside.
Thank you very much through the chair. We are looking to have it finished by the same time the NDP is finished, which would be early spring or in the spring of some time. We can keep council abreast of the progress within the economic development plan. It's very important that it aligns with council and with the community. And as such, we have a great team in the back that we utilize to ensure that it captures the flavor of the community. So we do make great efforts to have people who live within the community to review, to be involved, and to inform. So unfortunately, sometimes things do not align, and there are mistakes that do happen, and we're hoping to minimize that. And we look forward, if council decides to move forward on this project, to provide you with an opportunity for an additional level of review to ensure we're aligned with your vision.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Forbes.
One more, I promise. Who's analyzing the results from the community consultation?
That's going to be a team effort. So analyzing the results is really important for somebody with a strong economic development background to understand the triggers and trends and be able to advise on the portfolio appropriately. And that's where a lot of the majority of the information comes forward on where we're seeing pinch points within the organization. So, you know, as we go through that project, if council wants to be, you know, more involved, I'm more than willing to bring those results forward. However, we want to ensure that the contractor and the team has the ability to provide plans forward for council's direction, and then be able to do the work in the background effectively and prevent any additional delays. So depending on what council would like, we're able to accommodate more meetings with council to ensure that it's aligned and it's going in the direction that you would like it to go into, as it is quite an important document for us for the next 4 to 5 years.
Councillor Forbes.
So what I'm hearing is the contractor for the economic development and administration are going to be analyzing this information.
Correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Cunningham.
Yeah, just one more, yeah. So,
Just one more.
yeah, just one more. So yeah, I guess I'm just gonna go back to my original concern. Number 5 states, you know, we're gonna have an action plan, and I guess without someone in the economic development position, I'm just not sure who's going to put that forward. So that's just still gonna be my concern. I just don't want it to sit on the shelf collecting dust, which.
Through the chair, thank you very much for the question. That is really important to us. We currently use our current management staff as we move forward with different initiatives. I've been able to be quite fortunate with some extremely passionate individuals within our team. Our managers are willing to put in the extra effort. They helped move some of the tourism brochures, advertising forward to promote the community, and they continue to try to put those efforts forward. So as we continue with the recruitment process or how we're going to fill that position, we are going to move forward. We are going to continuously make efforts it would be more effective with someone in that position, as we can all agree. But we do not want this sitting on the side of the desk. We do not want to take on the effort to have nothing done. We want to ensure that we provide a quality product for council that council can be proud of and be able to promote outwards.
Okay, thank you for that. I think that all of us sitting in the room and our management and administration recognizes the best thing for us would be is if we had an economic development officer in place working every day. However, we don't have that, and so the question becomes, what do we do in the meantime? And so what I'm hearing is administration is proposing that we go forward with a contractor to help us align and develop an economic plan that matches our other documents and that also puts forward the initiatives within the strategic plan. And I very clearly hear the desire that's being expressed here that the money that we invest in this needs to be put to work. And so we don't want a document that's not going to be effective and sit on a shelf. And so I think that's very important that we all acknowledge that the results that come out of this need to have feet. The best way to have that happen is to find someone to sit in this position. And we recognize the difficulties that are there. And we'd all love to have somebody, and I'm not saying this in any way, shape, or form disparagingly, sitting in that chair today presenting an economic development plan that was developed in-house and in our community and by someone who's employed by this county. And so appreciate the efforts that are being made though in the meantime to move forward on the strategic plan and to align our documents. So, Councillor McGhee.
Having said all that, I'm passionate about seeing economic development move forward in our county and for it to continue to be enhanced. I think all the resources that we can put into doing that is going to be beneficial to our sustainability in long-term and short-term. As such, I wanted to bring emphasis that our staff still is doing quite a bit of work. And please notice the business satisfaction survey, which will contribute to that as well. Everyone, we have that online. But having said all those little blurbs, I'd like to say that I would like to make the motion that council approve the development of an economic development plan as presented in the report. Furthermore, that council approves the funding of $36,423.86 from the current vacant economic development officer position wage funds.
Okay, thank you for that. I think we've had a relatively fulsome discussion around this. Is there any further comment or discussion that's needed? If not, I'm going to ask the question. We do have a motion on the floor. Any other comment or discussion? I'm not seeing any, so I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gannon.
Thank you.
Okay, in our agenda, we are moving on to 7.1, Bylaw 1886, Repeal of Obsolete Bylaws. A trip back in the past and into history brought to us by Ms. Vanderkool. So thank you very much, Carolyn, for doing that. And if you want to present this item, we'd be happy to hear from you.
Thank you, Deputy Reeve King. I bring to you today agenda number 7.1, bylaw number 1886, the repeal of obsolete bylaws. Administration continues the process of reviewing the bylaws and cleaning up old bylaws that are obsolete and outdated. When this process is completed, we'll have only relevant active bylaws on the books. The only way to repeal and amend a bylaw is through another bylaw, so in front of you is a bylaw to rescind 20-some bylaws. I'm not going to go through every single bylaw, but this meeting's theme is hamlets once operated by Kneehill County and then annexed into a town or village. Rourkeville and Grantville, which were located north of the Highway 583 from Three Hills, were once a hamlet of Kneehill County, and they were annexed by the town December 31st, 1984, and Linden became a village in December 1963. So today, I present to you these bylaws to be repealed.
Okay, thank you for that. Like I say, these are always an interesting history lesson and make somewhat interesting reading, so. Any questions or comments? If not, we have a number of readings we need to give, and so what is your wish? Councillor Forbes.
Let's start it off. I make the motion that council give first reading to bylaw 1886, that being a bylaw to repeal obsolete, redundant, and outdated bylaws.
Thank you for that. If there's no discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimous. Thank you. Councillor Christie.
I'll move second reading to bylaw 1886.
Okay, so we have a motion to give second reading to bylaw 1886. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried unanimously as well. Councillor McGhee.
I move that council provide unanimous consent for third and final reading to bylaw 1886.
Okay, so we have a motion to give unanimous consent for the third and final reading. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Let the record show that that's unanimous. Thank you. Reeve Whitstock. Oh, sorry, I saw your hand.
Okay. I was still voting, but anyway, I provide third reading for bylaw 1886.
Okay, sorry about that. So we have a motion then to provide third reading to bylaw 1886. Any discussions? Yes, Councillor Penner.
Quick question, with the Grantville and the Rockville that were amalgamated into the town of Three Hills, there's not a cemetery out there somewhere that we're not identified, is there? Okay, thank you. Like just the odd site, you know what I mean? Not a major cemetery, but.
You mean a cemetery in Granville or Rourkeville? I don't believe that there is one, but I'm not 100% confident, but I'm 98.7% confident that there isn't one. But I can look
No, I
into it
just
for
want to
you.
make sure, just, because it can happen. There
Yeah.
can be, there was a lot of little hamlets and communities back in the day, so.
You never know. All right, any other discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to ask the question. All those in favor? And that also is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Our next item of business is 7.2, Urban Invitation to RMA. And Mr. Hogan, are you taking this?
Mr. Chair, I will be. So through Mr. Chair to Council, the policy that's before you today, or the proposed policy that's in front of you today, is regarding the invitations that we as a county make to our urban counterparts to take a member of their council as our guest to RMA. Council made this motion previously for a couple of purposes. One was to foster an understanding of the issues that face rural municipalities, and to basically provide, whether you call it that education or awareness platform for some of our urban partners who we do a lot of dealing with, as to the challenges that we face. As we know, some of what we face as a rural municipality is the same that they face as an urban municipality, and some of it is different. And so we often have different perspectives on things, and in terms of relationship building throughout the region, it was felt that this would be not only a good chance to raise awareness or to have some of that education to some of our working partners, but to, I'll call it on a human level, to build that relationship as well. Felt there was importance in maintaining that relationship given the work we do together, as well as the requirement to periodically redo and renegotiate a number of joint services agreements under the umbrella of the intermunicipal collaboration framework. And so looking at that as an investment in terms of having a positive relationship with the people that we're going to be sitting across the table from, having some potential disagreements in that realm. So as at September 27th, 2022 council meeting, the motion that, that this occur took place. Administratively, we're suggesting that to codify this into a policy, what this would actually do is it means that rather than bring an RFD back to council each time that we're going to make this invite, to determine who we're going to invite, there's basically a list there that we just go to the next one on the list. And we pass the policy, it saves us bringing an RFD back every time that we're going to do this, because we just follow the policy. The other thing the policy does is it does outline what we cover and what we don't. So in terms of the registration, hotel room subsistence, in line with our policy, we would cover that. If another member of another municipality was providing a per diem or a meeting attendance rate, mileage to get to and from the conference, we would not cover that. And so that's what's outlined in the policy. So again, there's clarity there for admin. We know what we're going to incur as a cost, and what we need to take care of. But really what the purpose of the policy is just to expedite that previous motion of council without having to bring an RFD back each time to council to do it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hogan. Are there any questions or comments, any discussion? So we understand the purpose of the policy, which is basically just to administratively make it more simple, to extend these invitations, and to continue to build on the partnerships that we have. So, any discussion? If not, what's the wish of council? Councillor McGhee.
I think the more we work together with our neighbors, the better we all are. And so I'd like to make the motion that we approve policy 3-4, urban invitation to RMA as presented.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve policy 3-4, which allows us to invite our urban neighbors to RMA. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to ask the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll continue in our agenda. We're moving on to 9.1, Council and Committee Reports. Police Advisory Committee and Councillor Cunningham, if you wish, please. And you might as well do your verbal at the same time if you want, please.
So just because I mentioned it before verbally, I just wanted to make sure that the public was aware. I've spoken in the past about a regimental ball that the RCMP was going to hold in November. And I just want to let people know that they've decided not to hold that at this time. There's a couple other detachments, Innisfail and Olds, that will be holding them as well. So they just didn't want to kind of inundate the area with that. So just wanted to make sure if people are putting it on their calendar that it won't be happening this year. Potentially maybe in the next year or two they would hold it here. So just a little update on that. And if I could, Deputy Reeve King, just a little comment about our meeting last night. Okay. I just really want to thank my fellow council and administration and especially the planning staff for putting on our renewable information night last night. It was very well attended, and I think there was some very good information that came out of that. I think we would have liked a little bit of time for Q&A, but there's just so much time in the day, so that's fine. I think the two gentlemen that presented are more than willing to have questions asked of them. So I think if anybody's interested, we could get that information to them. So yeah, just an all-around thank you for putting that on last night.
Was there anyone else wanting to comment on last night's meeting on renewables? Councillor Phobes?
CIO Hogan. Sorry,
Mr. Hogan?
Thank you. It was a late night. It's my understanding that we'll be putting those slides on our website. Is that true? Just for public viewing? I had heard that last night, so I'm just wanting to make sure for clarity.
Thank you. Through the chair, we are in conversations with the two parties to make sure we have permission to put them on site, but as soon as we receive that, we will be making efforts to post it for individuals to see.
Okay. All right, we're good there. Councillor McGhee, you had a report?
Yes, a lot of reading for you. Sorry about that. I just wanted to reiterate, I found FCM, for me, one of the best ones that I've been at as far as hands-on information. And I wanted to bring emphasis to the fact that I was able to experience a lot of bridging of the rural to urban and understanding the dynamics of each and how to work together, to see that kind of environment compared to when I first became a counselor and my first FCM that I ever attended, it being extremely like, do rural people exist feeling when I was there, to really constructive work on working on understanding each other and some of the issues. There were several breakout sessions with that kind of philosophy, and I find that really encouraging that our advocacy is working. We are seeing change.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, and I asked to put on a verbal report on Trochu housing. So we did have a meeting yesterday afternoon. We are still waiting for an announcement. I won't mention any names, but if you're listening, please, we're waiting. We have a new course Minister of Seniors, Jason Nixon, and a new Minister of Health, Adriana LaGrange, and so, of course, now there's new faces at the table. However, the overall mood of the meeting was positive, although impatient. And so we were waiting and waiting and waiting. So there is some work still to be done, but until we have an announcement, there's really not much point in moving forward with that work. And so really we're in a holding mode at this point. So just so you're aware, we haven't heard anything. We were told there would be an announcement in spring. Spring ends on June 21st, which is the start of summer. So we're very hopeful that we're going to hear something prior to that. So that's just so you have an idea where we're at on the Trochu housing. Councillor Cunningham.
I just want to say, I think that's one of the challenges that we face when we sit here and we sit on these committees, is that we do a lot of work, and then the government changes. And so I appreciate the fact that you folks had a good relationship with the two previous ministers that are involved in that portfolio, and now it probably feels a little bit like you're starting from scratch again. So I hope that it moves forward, and yeah. That's all.
Well, if you listen to the provincial government in terms of what they're looking for in terms of senior housing within communities, the project, especially rural communities, the project that's being proposed by Trochu fits all the boxes. It checks all the boxes. And so it's just amazing to me that you can sit there and you know that you fit within the categories, and you know that you were invited to put in a proposal, and yet you are still waiting. And so that's the frustrating part. But we remain hopeful, and we remain positive, and we look forward to hearing good things in the future. So. Okay, so I guess we would need a motion to.
So moved.
Okay, so Councillor Penner makes a motion to accept for information the council and committee reports as presented. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Okay, I think we could probably take care of the council follow-up action list. Item 10 on our agenda. We have that list that was presented, and we had an update given to us this morning. So are there any questions or comments related to the council action items? Councillor Cunningham.
Not necessarily on the action list, but I just want to confirm that we're still moving forward with the East Water survey results on June 27th council meeting.
Yes, through the chair, the intent is that the presentation goes to council on June 27th with survey results.
Okay, we are looking forward to that. Any other questions? Councillor Penner.
Not on the list, but just wondering if we were able to hire all our summer positions. Have they been filled? Anybody give us an update?
Through Mr. Chair, I believe that we have. The most recent one, I believe, was a mowing technician that we had just filled recently here, and I believe that was the outstanding one.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Councillor Cunningham?
Again, not on the list, but just wondering, I think it was last council meeting, I'd asked for an update on the electronic speed signs, and just wondering where we're at with that, if the one that was not working has been repaired, and also just looking for that capital equipment plan as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, through the review, we have one speed sign, and it's still not operating properly. So we are trying to procure the equipment. Individuals, electricians have looked at the sign as it is proprietorship type of equipment. We're trying to ensure that it gets up and running as quickly as possible, but they're continuously trying to find pieces and item for it. If we can't do that, there most likely will be a proposed replacement of the equipment.
Okay, thank you. Seems like most things we're talking about today aren't on the list. Could we have an update on where we're at? Is Trochu bulk water back up and running? Do we know that, whether that's?
Sorry, Council, my apologies. Yes, the Trochu bulk water was put back online a number of days ago here. We did have an issue there where it was damaged inadvertently from a user, so our staff did a great job rediverting some of the water because we did have higher usage at some of our other sites because of that downage. We acquired the parts and did a fix on it, and they're all should be up and running as we speak right now.
Okay. I know I had a number of comments from producers who are in the process of trying to get spraying done and experienced significant lineups in other locations and difficulty accessing water. So it's good to know Trochu's back online. So.
Right, and, sorry.
Councillor Christie, then Councillor Penn.
Go ahead.
I was just curious, Torrington was on a rotation where it was off at times?
Yeah, through the chair, because we had to shut down Trochu, we saw Torrington and Swalwell receive excess traffic there, and to keep the levels, there's a shut-off level in the reservoirs to ensure that our water systems stay pressurized, and that's the reason we had to slow those down. We tried to recover throughout the night, and eventually Torrington did catch up, but it was a number of days of slow pull there. We definitely received a lot of phone calls on that too here at the office, so we were very aware of the problem.
Well, I'm
just going forward,
happy I wasn't the only one.
Yeah. Going forward, we're ensuring that we have backup systems and parts for if this ever, it's the first time it's ever happened, but we're going to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Councillor Penner.
I just wanted to comment on that, on the Carbon or the Gamble one too. Like, it was shut down for a few hours too. You could not get water, and when you could get water, there was hour long, but which is fine, which I think is great, that our residents will never be out of water that are hooked up to it, you know what I mean? And talking to our landowners and sprayers that couldn't fill, they fully understand. They were frustrated, but they did understand that the residents need to get water who are hooked up. So it's been very hot, and a lot of water has been used, not just for spraying. There's a lot of cattle being watered right now because there was no runoff. So.
Yeah. Okay, continuing on the hit list that's not on the list. Just wondered if you could give me an update on where we are on the lighting study and the wastewater situation in Huxley. So just kind of timeline going forward.
Yes, for sure. So through the chair, the Huxley study has been put out for tender. It's the wastewater assessment and proposal for different options. That's put out, and I believe it closes this Friday, Thursday or Friday this week. So we should have results in our hands, and then we can start the assessment of that, and then put forward the award to that program. From there, we'll have to set up dates and times with a consultant for the Huxley. We're looking to tie that into the same meetings with the lighting assessments rather than have two separate meetings. Like I mentioned in a previous meeting, we do have the lighting assessment done by ATCO Electric. So we have some proposal options. So we were hoping to have that tied into the same public engagement meeting.
Okay, thank you. I've been certainly putting it in front of the residents there, so.
Perfect.
Okay, any other questions on council action items? Not, I would be looking for a motion. Mr. Hogan, go ahead.
There was just one, through Mr. Chair, there was one outstanding question that I don't think was answered. The capital equipment plan is being prepared, so we've got through that department, so we will be sending that out to you. So that one, I know you brought that up, but it wasn't, we didn't address that in any of our answers yet. So.
Okay, thank you for that. So the only thing between you and a break is a motion to receive the action list as presented. Councillor Christie.
So moved.
You're my hero.
Motivation makes motion forward, right? All right, so we have a motion to accept the council follow-up action list as it's been presented. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimous. And since we have a delegation coming at 10, I am going to say we're in recess until such time. So this is your opportunity. So we're recessed until 10. You have 15 seconds. I just wanted to know that the clock is moving. Carolyn, you said you're live. Okay, so it's 10 a.m. and I'm going to call the council meeting back to order. And at this point in our agenda, we are going to welcome a delegation who are here to talk to us on behalf of the Huxley Community Association. And so welcome, gentlemen. I'm sure you know everybody in the room, but we're going to introduce ourselves and then we're going to allow you to do the same. I'm going to do it. We'll introduce council first, and then I'm going to ask our staff that are in the room to introduce themselves. And Jerry, since you're the farthest away from me, I'm going to ask you to go first.
Good morning. Jerry Woodstock.
Go ahead.
Orly Michelle Cunningham, Division 5.
Carrie Phobes, Division 4.
Wade Christie, just south of the Hoppins Highway.
Like I said, you pretty well know everybody. Ken King.
Faye McGhee.
Morning, guys. Debbie Penner.
Go ahead, Mike.
Morning, Mike Hogan, Chief Administrative Officer.
Kevin.
Kevin Gannon, Director of Community Services.
Hi there, Mike Zier, Director of Infrastructure.
And Kinza Barney, Director of Corporate Services.
Save the best till last. Go ahead, introduce yourselves and then go ahead with your presentation.
Good morning, I'm Jason Morgan and past president of the Community Association.
Good morning, Richard Hoppins, and just a point of interest, that was a highway before I was born, so.
Welcome, gentlemen, and we look forward to hearing from you, and certainly, please.
Yeah, thanks for having us, and thanks, Carolyn, for working with us and arranging this delegation for us. As you all know, we're with the Huxley Community Association, and we currently operate the community hall and curling rink facilities. We have a fantastic board with us. A little background on myself, I guess. I've been a board member with the association since the mid to late 90s, and 4 or 5 consecutive terms as president. I just stepped down out of that chair here in April of this year. So happy to be here presenting our community hall, currently used by the local Huxley 4-H Club, the Legion Branch Community Association Historical Society, and we also host a lot of local family events, bridal showers, reunions, birthday parties, etc. We run on average, I'd say 24 to 30 bookings a year out of the facility. So we had a fairly catastrophic hailstorm up in Huxley in June of 2020, and we ended up with an insurance payout from our curling rink, actually. And just due to the prorated, we were paid out in the amount of just under $27,000, $26,967.80 to be specific. And both of our facilities and roofs require projects right now. We were obviously going to use this money to, we need to replace all the screws in the tin and recaulk the tin roof on our curling club. And the community hall, the roof is in basically disrepair. The shingles are all curled up. We've lost a ton of them in windstorms, so on and so forth. So we need to get both them projects done. And the insurance payout, we have a substantial shortfall of what we need. So hence the reason we're here today requesting some assistance, financial assistance from the county. We have a $34,000 quote to repair both facilities. And unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we did have to dip into that fund to cover off some operating costs, ever so slightly. So we're short about $12,000 to complete the project. We were sorry, we were short about 17,000. The last couple events we've had in our cash raffle, which I'll talk about, we're down about $12,000, short $12,000 right now to date. We do have the repairs booked, and work will commence here towards the end of June, first part of July. We will have the funds to cover it, but we will dip into our operating budget fairly substantially, and we don't know if we'll make the winter, hence the reason we're here. So our request to council is financial assistance in the amount of $10,000, if we could. For background, we put on 2 major fundraisers a year to build our operating budget, and that would be the annual ball tournament and the all-nighter bonspiel in January. Those generate plus or minus $10,000 of net dollars each event. We have since in 2020 started a raffle to generate some funds as well, and we'll if we sell out, we'll make $16,000 there. And then we operate with the AGLC with casino funds as well. Expecting, we just finished one, we haven't got the payout yet. We're expecting in the low 20s is what we've been told by other organizations, and then we work that into our budget over a 3-year period. And unfortunately, casinos are stretching out closer to 4 years now. So yeah, the cash raffle is one that we've raised to it, but for a reference point, just over the last couple of years and our operating budget, ATCO Energy alone, our expenses in 2022 were just under $28,000. So we started that cash raffle project to build a bank for capital projects such as what we're doing right now, and our operating costs over the last couple of years and our lack of bookings in the COVID and the pandemic, the recourse from that is we're using all them funds just to pay our bills and stay afloat right now. So
Okay. Was there more that you wanted to tell us about?
No, ultimately that's it. We're concerned that we're not going to operate through the winter months with what we have in coming right now, the way we operate our budget, and we can, like I said, pay for the project right now. So we're just requesting some financial assistance to help us get through, so we're comfortable that we can make it through the winter, the expensive months of our operating.
Okay. Are there questions from council to our presenters? Thank you, by the way. Councillor Penner.
Thanks for everything you guys do. I really understand the rural halls mean a lot to our little communities and hamlets and that. Have you applied for any matching grants?
Yeah, we apply for pretty much everything that we can that comes available. I'm at a loss. Have we received anything recently? Do you remember?
No, we haven't received anything recently. We've applied for the operating grants as well as project stream grants that Jamie from the town of Trochu assists us with, but we haven't been successful at this time.
Okay, just nice to hear that you are applying, because that money is out there and you just don't know if you're going to get it or not. But and also I do find it, I feel for you guys, it's frustrating with the casinos. It's not right how it's distributed, you know, like south of the county can get 50,000 and the north of the county can only get 20, you know what I mean? So I do feel for you there, but thanks for coming in.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Cunningham.
I just want to say thanks for all you do. And one thing I really appreciate is the fact that you outlined your fundraising initiatives. A lot of times people come and ask for money, but they're not showing us what they're doing to try to help the situation. So really appreciate the fact that you guys are very proactive in fundraising. So, and like Councillor Penner said, these small halls really are the heart of our community. So appreciate what you do.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So we will deal with your request here shortly in our agenda. Appreciate you taking the time and making the effort to come today and to ask for our help. It's appreciated. So hopefully we'll have some good news for you, but that's a decision of council. So thank you to both of you, Richard and Jason. Appreciate you being here. And I know Brandy's in the back there supporting, so.
Lurking.
Yeah, in closing, thank you for hearing us out and considering what we're requesting here. Closing remarks from our side, I guess, is to bring to everyone's attention, we are having a large event on the last weekend in July, July 29th, we'll be celebrating the 102nd anniversary of our community hall. It's been up for 102 years. Our local Legion branch is also celebrating 102 years, and the local 4-H club 70 years. So it's our annual ball tournament weekend, and we're having a supper and some speeches and people there, and we'd love to see you all there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Appreciate you coming in, taking the time to come and talk to us. Okay, thank you. So I guess we are at that point in our agenda, therefore, where we would be at 8.1, which is delegation and disposition, or disposition of delegation and public hearing business. And the organization that's in front of us this morning is the Huxley Community Hall Association. So if you go to 8.1, you have the information that's there. Mr. Hogan, is there anything you'd like to add, or anyone else have anything they would like to add?
Through Mr. Chair, the only thing I'll point out in the RFD is until a couple moments ago, we didn't know the amount of the request. So now that we do, that $10,000 mark, look to possible funding sources. You currently have just over 14,700 in your community grant program. You do have 2,700 available in the Recreation, Community and Arts Grant Program funds. The council contingency that's outlined there, you've actually already spent that. There isn't anything remaining in there. You could choose to take it from there. One of the things that, if this is a request that you wish to fund, if you chose to go over budget in one of those areas or to add more funding to it, we believe that could be accommodated by year end.
Councillor Penner.
Thanks, Mr. Hogan. And on the note here, there's like the $14,722 left in community grant programs. I would like us to not touch that. The second round is here in the fall, and some groups do not apply until they're ready. So the first round, we did use up some of the money, and this is what's left. So in my books, I don't think we should touch that money.
Okay, thank you for that. Just by way of additional background, I guess I had some conversation with the folks in Huxley regarding their situation. And unfortunately for them, they got 2 buildings in one event. And even more unfortunate is of course, the way insurance works nowadays, everything's prorated, and age of shingles and those kind of things are all factored into it. And their long-term plan, I think, in the community is to consolidate towards the new building that's there, but that's going to take time. And they have a hall that's, as they said, been there for 102 years, and they're trying to preserve that building for the interim period. And as we all know, if your roof's leaking, pretty soon everything else goes to pieces. And so if we choose to help them, they'll be very thankful. If we choose not, they can still do the project. However, they have a roof that's now shingled, but no money to operate. And so that's kind of where we leave them sitting. I think we took,
I'll just make a further comment, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Great to hear that they have a vision, and I just can't imagine the vision that our servicemen had when they came home from war. It seems like most of our little halls in all our little rural communities were built. But I thank you for for the update on the vision, you know, they don't know for sure dates and whatnot, or a year, you know,
Yeah.
but they do have a vision, and they realize that some of these old buildings, you just have to eventually stop putting money into them if it's bad enough. So I think it's it is the hub of a community, and no matter what the size is. So, and they have a very active group up there, and I didn't realize so many community associations and groups were actually using it.
Councillor Phobes.
Sorry, Mr. Hogan, can you remind me again, if we're not gonna touch the 14,000, where would we make up the difference? I mean, we'll use the 2,700, but where would we make up the difference?
Through Mr. Chair, I think there's a couple of options that council could look at. I think ultimately what my recommendation would be to look at, I know it said that we don't want to use up that community grant program. I think my recommendation would still be to take it from there, but understand that we're going to have a budget overage at the end of the year, most likely. And I guess where I'm going with that is if we recognize that we put whatever dollar figure towards this, I'm just going to say the 10 to use in the conversation, that we had used 10,000 for that. If we did get grant applications in round 2 that exceeded the remaining budget, council could choose to just add more money at that point. Really what I'm recommending, I guess, comes down to even if it was the full amount of 10,000, we can manage that through the budget. There'll be other areas that by year end will have saved, you know, when you save $1,000 here and $2,000 there, it just means that any year end surplus would be $10,000 less than otherwise. So the main point I guess I'm making is I think you can take it from there and it's manageable without impacting the budget at the end of the year.
Councillor Phobes.
So then have they received the Rural Hall grant funding for 2023 of the 3,397? Do you know?
It says here that they have, it says through the rural grant funding in the 8.1. So. So the question relates to the rural hall grant funding. Has that been distributed in 2023?
Yes. Yes, Deputy Reeve, those checks have been distributed.
Okay, thank you. I know that the 10,000 they're requesting from us is a couple thousand short of what they are looking for, but I also know they're actively fundraising with individuals and within the community to make up that other $2,000. So, Councillor Penner.
So I'm going to throw the motion out there. We can have more discussion on it. This was an unforeseen event in my books. And I'm going to put it out there that we do give them the $10,000 and it comes out of the community grant program funds after Mr. Hogan's explanation.
Okay, with the clarification and the understanding that there is room for other groups to come in and apply for funding. Any other comments or questions? Councillor McGhee.
I am concerned about the precedent we're setting of not waiting for the community grant programs application process and going through that way and allocating money out of that fund, because there's going to end up being someone saying, well, if we known we could have put in a plea before it was time to apply, we would have. And I'm really worried about using the community grant program, reinforcing that theory. If it's a one-off situation, I'd rather say we're bringing it from somewhere else. But where that would be, I can't even think of to suggest.
Okay, recognize the concern, and I guess the reality is at any point in time, we could have a delegation sitting in front of us asking for help.
And I'll accept a friendly amendment if somebody, has something.
Councillor Christie.
I just was gonna point out that delegation option's always been there for what, not really to the guideline of time, but if you wanted to come for as a delegation, that's always been there as far as I was aware.
Mr. Hogan.
If I can, through Mr. Chair, council could, if you wanted to, you could take this from council contingency as well. you'd be doing it with the knowledge that that would put that line over budget. So you'd see that. Again, not a big deal. At the end of the year, when we're talking about in the grand scheme of the county's budget, we can manage an overage on a single line of 10,000. So that would just be doing that with council's awareness. So you do have that option. How we manage that overage is, it really doesn't matter where it comes from. We can manage that. One of the other things, pardon me, that was not attractive at all. Sorry. One of the other discussions that we've just had administratively that we've not brought back to you yet is Carolyn and I have sat down and we've done a bit of a review on all of council's grant programs as they relate to this area. And what we were doing that with an eye towards was how those grant programs were forwarding council's strategic plan, and to see if there were recommendations that we might bring back to you as for a discussion on, are there grant programs we should be adding? Should we be changing some of our current ones? In large part, your grant programs, we think, and what we'll tell you when, and I think we have that for Committee of the Whole coming up, is in large part, they are aligned with your strategic plan. In that review, however, we did identify that capital funding for halls is something we don't really have a grant program for. And recognizing the point that Councillor Cunningham made, when we look at the strategic plan and talk about preserving the rural way of life and the role that communities halls play in there, part of what we're going to be coming back to you with is saying there might be a gap here, or there might be something that we want to put in place that would help forward your strategies under the strategic plan. How you do that's a different question, right? If you reduce one grant area to make some funding available for this area, for capital grants and things like that, or do you just add more money to the budget and you got a new pool of cash that you put in there, right? So those are different options available to you, but we are coming back to put that on your discussion plate, whether we should develop something there and what the parameters of that should be. Should it be matching? Should it not? There's pros and cons to any which way, like everything. But you do have that coming forward. One of the other things that we've talked about administratively is once we have an asset management position in place that has been approved in budget and we get the county's operations up and rolling in that department, one of the things that we've said, might be a possibility depending on resource capacity is to start doing some asset management work for our local community halls, being able to provide that expertise to them so that there are, we all know from operating buildings and things like that, you got to replace hot water tanks, furnaces, shingles, stuff like that along the way, right? And so helping those halls determine what those needs are and those timelines so they can start putting money away and reduce some of the stuff for this. That latter part is a much longer term thing, though. We have a number of our own things we need to get up and running in order before we start looking at that. But it has been identified as a future possibility. But I do think the more immediate and the grant funding, you've got that discussion coming to you actually fairly quickly. You might not see the impacts of that until the 2024 budget, but the discussion's coming your way.
Okay, so we do have a motion on the floor. If we want to change the location of where those funds come from, that would be up to us as council. And of course, Councillor Penner had indicated she would take that as a friendly amendment. We have a community association, like many of our community associations, that's very active and very busy and also very diligent in raising money. And so I guess the question would be to you, Councillor McGhee, would you prefer that we designate council contingency? We recognize that we're going to be over budget on that line. However, as we've heard from administration, that is a manageable overage within the total budget. So.
Don't particularly like that solution either, but as there's only two choices, I would prefer that solution. I will not agree to break what I feel the motion as it stands is going against our own policy for grants, scholarships, and awards, and I just think that's a dangerous slope. Okay. Yes, I would love that amendment if that is acceptable.
Accepted, yep.
Okay, so then we have, the motion now would read that council approve a donation in the amount of $10,000 with funds to come from council contingency. Any further discussion, conversation? Comment? Councillor Phopes.
Could we give them the, could we give them the 2,700 out of the recreation community? Because from what I'm hearing is that it's mostly for operations come the fall when they need it. That would still enable them to hold their ball tournament and to see, and then we could offset in the fall when we do the community grant program. They could come, they could send in the paperwork again, like they just did. And then we would know the actual dollar amount that they would require. Just putting that out for thought.
As a part of the community grant application, projects can't be started. They have to be approved first and then start. So then that would mean that they wouldn't have the summer to fix their roof.
Go ahead, Councillor Phopes.
I thought that they stated they had the money to do the roof now, currently. Did I
They did say
misunderstand
that
that?
they had enough money that they could do the project, but they didn't have any operating money. So there's gonna be significant money to put on the ball tournament and to continue to pay their utilities. And that's really, for a lot of these small halls and these community associations, that's what's killing them is utility costs. They're just getting eaten alive by natural gas and electricity. Unregulated market.
And I did hear that too, that they did have the funds, but I did interpret it that they do need some of them to continue to operate here. You have to keep things running.
So
Also, community grants are for capital projects, not for operating.
So we do still have a motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion regarding the motion that's on the floor? I'm not seeing any. I'm going to ask the question if there's no further discussion. Okay, the motion is that we approve a donation of $10,000 with the funds to come from council contingency. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, thank you for your patience and your participation. And we are now at the point in our agenda where we have 3 items for closed session. Legal advice under section 27, third-party business under section 16, and disclosure harmful to personal privacy under section 17. So I would need a motion to go into closed session. Councillor Christie?
So moved.
Okay, all those in favor? And that's carried unanimous. Thank you.